Shabbat Shalom, everybody, on this 1 year anniversary of the pandemic. We'll talk more about that throughout our service, but before we get going, a few program reminders. Next week, I will be speaking about the traditions of synagogue names. This will serve as the official kickoff for our congregation-wide project to claim our new name. Those of you who are not members can certainly submit ideas, though we're going to restrict the voting and the whole process of selecting a new name to our membership. That'll be next week. The following week, there will be no service on Friday night because that is Passover weekend, and I'll be gearing up for our Seder. Those of you who live in Southeast Michigan, whether you're members or not, are welcome to order a Seder in the box. That's 2 complete meals, the details about which are on our website when you click on the newsletter link. We also have Haggadahs on sale. You can find information there or simply go to shj.org to order your own. And finally, it'll be on that Sunday night of Passover weekend that we will have our YouTube Seder, a little bit different environment than I'm in right now. We'll bring the cameras and everything downstairs, Arthur and I around the table with our BT Haggadah. So I hope you'll join us for those things. Also coming up on May 15th, our annual spring fundraiser, our trivia night. So hold the date, Saturday, May 15th, for what should prove to be a really, really fun evening. Let's continue now with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi, לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקבלה Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach.
A reading adapted from a piece by Nancy Reed McKee. Our community knows no boundaries. We are not confined by the physical limits of walls, or for that matter, of what often binds us, restricts us, holds us back. We are freer than we know when we release ourselves and each other from expectations of what is needed for true community. We are here together in this virtual space. We see each other in our mind's eye. We hear each other. We embrace each other too. As we welcome Shabbat, lighting our candles, beacons of our tradition, may they hold us all together, here and now. We continue with the bracha, the blessing, over our candles.
ברוך האור בעולם, ברוך האור באדם, ברוך האור בשלום, בשלום, ברוך האור, ברוך האור.
Tonight we mark 1 year of this pandemic, 1 year of uncertainty, 1 year of fear, 1 year of loss. As we stand now on the precipice of recovery, we remember those who have not made it to this point. May their memories bless those who mourn them. We also turn our thoughts to those who labored without rest to treat the ill and provide comfort to their loved ones. May we remember their deeds always. No one has emerged from this unscathed, though some have been more fortunate than others. We have all lost something, precious moments that will never be recovered, hours with loved ones and friends lost forever. Like every difficult experience, we must learn from what we have suffered. Among those lessons, let this one rise above them all. Time is the most precious commodity of every human. Our limited stays on this earth are usually long enough that we frequently forget this. But then every now and then, or in the case of a global pandemic, every 100 years or so, we are pulled back to the reality that every moment wasted is a moment that we can never recover. As we slowly but very surely begin our return to normal life, when we may finally again embrace those whose nearness of touch was robbed from us, let us do so with the appreciation that even if it is too painful to imagine, when we say that a moment is precious, it is because that moment may never come again. We continue with Afo Ori. Our guest tonight is Ashira Solomon, the newly appointed Community Associate for Unity, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Detroit Jewish Community Relations Council. Ashira has worked for and with Jewish nonprofits in areas of social and environmental progress, and now brings her talents to this unique position in our community. I want to apologize in advance for some minor sound issues and what may seem like an abrupt conclusion of the interview. You will see it in its entirety. Both of those were due to some unforeseen technical issues. Please enjoy my conversation with Ashira. Ashira Solomon, you are the new Community Associate at the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council here in Detroit. And your responsibilities include diversity and equity and inclusion. And I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight with our community so we can learn more what's going on at the Detroit JCRC with these issues. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we turn on the cameras, we were talking a little bit about what your portfolio includes.
Yes. So I thankfully and graciously joined my position as community associate at JCRC AJC. And I'm working on some different initiatives there. My first initiative is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I plan to work both internally within our organization and externally in the community. There have been already numerous people and different synagogues that have reached out in terms of how to move forward in these conversations. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. In addition to that, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. In addition to that, I am working with the Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity. This is an important organization because specifically in Detroit, throughout history, but specifically in Detroit, there's been some overlap in historical events. And there are different programs going on right now that are bringing the two communities together, the Black community and the Jewish community, and discussing those historical events and discussing the history in Detroit, discussing how to move forward, etc. We're really looking forward to planning some really great events. So I'm doing the staffing for all of our committees and various programs there. In addition to that, I hope to begin a Black Jewish Fellowship program to start discussing some of these important topics. It has come to our attention that the younger generations are not understanding the depth of the relationship that has existed between the Black community and the Jewish community. And we want to be a resource for them. Certainly, you know, in the education world, there's so much to cover, and these specific areas are not often paid enough tribute to, I would say. So we're looking at starting that program. It'll be very exciting. And additionally, I am working on a trauma initiative program. This program is it's meant to provide direct services for victims of trauma in Detroit, or prevent crisis. After this pandemic, it's just been really difficult on families, socialization, just shelter, you know, staying afloat throughout all of this. So that's my main portfolio. In addition to that, I'm always a resource. So I feel very comfortable with the community and the Detroit community and the community at large. So I really just hope to be a valuable resource in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion issues and initiatives.
So it's interesting to me that you're talking about an outward facing towards the larger community initiative and also an inward facing towards our own community. How do you see the differences in your task, in these two tasks?
So, you know, JCRC AJC is built really of a group of extremely passionate people, extremely open-minded, extremely just good-hearted people. And so moving forward there is going to be a very exciting moment for us. We paid attention to a lot of different types of issues within our organization. And it's just amazing to see how excited my colleagues are about this and moving forward. In addition, like I mentioned, I work with the Coalition for Black and Jewish Unity, which is under the JCRC AJC. And again, a group of just very passionate, overwhelmingly giving, loving group of people who are just excited to move forward and to have support. And I'm so excited to support them. And then externally, I am finding that it is very exciting to me. Many times I'm contacted by community members and they're a little bit nervous. Like, we don't really know how to start this conversation. It's kind of a difficult and uncomfortable conversation to have. And I've really appreciated being able to be a resource for them. We're all starting at different points. And I think it's just so important to meet every organization and every person at their level. You know, some people are just starting this conversation revolving around diversity, and others have taken an extensive amount of time to study and begin. learning about things they didn't know about. So it is very interesting because it's kind of two different ways to approach, if you will, but both very exciting. So
there is, I believe it was Karl Popper, I hope I'm not wrong, who presented this paradox of the tolerance of intolerance. How much do we tolerate intolerance? How much is that an acceptable worldview that we can then engage in dialogue with those who basically seek to evaluate or negate our basic human dignity and equality? The kinds of things that we say we're working toward, can we really enter into a dialogue with someone like that?
excellent question. Excellent question. You know, it takes a lot of patience to have open conversations, specifically with those who are intolerant. I will say I listened to a fantastic, I don't know if you're on Clubhouse. This is the new social media. It's an open dialogue platform, which has been very helpful for me. And I listened to a Holocaust survivor. His name is Sammy Steigman. And what I've learned from him is that it's so important. He said, I don't hate anyone. And we all were like, Sammy, you're a Holocaust survivor, and he really went into detail about different things that have happened and the events and being, a woman who saved his life and all of these events, right? It was staring him in the face, death, and yet and still he doesn't hate anyone. And I think that really opened, like everyone in the room, I think just kind of zoomed out of perspective and looked in on him saying, your ability to be completely patient with those who, are really intolerant is phenomenal. And it's something we can all learn from. What he taught me is that rather than attacking those perspectives, attacking is something I generally just try not to do, period. Because like I said, I think it's just so important to have every perspective in the mix, because once you understand those perspectives, you can then understand what's behind those perspectives and what's motivating them. So I feel that, I'm going back for a moment. Asking, a lot of people are non-confrontational because this kind of conversation is uncomfortable for them. But when someone says something that's completely offensive, intolerant, unaccepting, etc., rather than saying, oh, you're a fool, you're this, you're that, whatever, zoom in on them for a moment. And this is something that's hard, but confront them and say, why is it that you chose to use that terminology? Or, now I'm interested in your perspective on that. Tell me more about what you mean when you say such and such. I had someone who specifically attacked a Facebook post that I made. It was a little controversial. It was Colin Kaepernick when he was taking a knee. And this was right around the time that the death of George Floyd happened, that the protests were going on. And it was a little, from others' perspectives, they would say it's controversial. I didn't think it was controversial at all. But instead of writing that person off, I actually confronted them. And that confrontation led to a long-term conversation where I started to understand that the person I was talking to did not have a clue really about the events of discrimination and the long history of that, dating all the way back to the very, beginning of what we would call American independence. And so it took a lot of patience because I personally felt attacked, and I felt like, how could someone not understand that in America, it's an issue for a Black man to take a knee, but it's not an issue for a white man to kneel on a Black man in front of cameras for the whole world to see. And that was exactly what my post said, was, why, basically along the lines of, why is it okay for a white man to kneel on a Black man's neck in murder, but it's not okay for a Black man to kneel in protest of that murder? Why is that? And so it's hard. It's extremely hard, I'll tell you, to have these conversations, because they really, I think when you are an open-minded person, you're a person who cares about humanity, the kind of people that it sounds like your congregation, that they are, it's hard to hear those things, and it hurts. And but it's so necessary, because the kind of people that you're explaining in your congregation, these are going to be leaders because of the way that they can see perspective and understand that human rights and basic humanity, basic morality, that's where we need to start. So that would be my answer. I know it's hard, but keep going. You can do it.
Once again, thank you to Ashira. Apologies for that technical difficulty that cut off our parting words. Let's continue now with some thoughts about peace, inspired by the writing of Victoria Weinstein. We have gathered here, even in our separateness, to remind ourselves that we are not alone. In our fears, we are not alone. In our grasping for peace, finding it in fleeting moments and losing it again to some turmoil of the mind and heart, we are not alone. In our cynical moments, our wonderings, is this all there is? Is this the best we can do? We are not alone. In our pain, we are not alone. For we can work together for healing and wholeness, for love that reaches between us to fill these spaces, that consoles the grieving and calms the anxious, that gives new vision to eyes dimmed by tears and exhaustion, that opens the ear to deeper truth, that makes a place in the heart for hope. We continue now with Na'aseh Shalom. In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight we extend our well wishes to these members of our community and their loved ones, to Joe Gaden, Demi Bird, Julie Eliason, Karen Tremper Harris, Myron Tink, and Rabbi Peter Schweitzer. May all who suffer know that they are not alone. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, a refuah shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits. Before we continue with our weekly memorial, we take now a moment to honor the more than 530,000 Americans whom COVID took from this life. May we honor the memories of those who have died alone in these past months, without family or friends to hold their hands or sit at their bedsides because of the dangers of this disease. May we extend the comfort and warmth that their survivors were denied in those last days to each of them. May we keep alive in our hearts the memories and courage of those who contracted the virus while caring for others, the healthcare professionals, those who work with the elderly, essential workers of all kinds, chaplains and social workers, and so many more. May our lives reflect a measure of their bravery and dedication. May the memories of all who died be bound up in our bond of life, and may they be recalled with honor. We pause now as we listen to these words from our tradition. Our thoughts turn to those among our own community who are no longer with us, our own loved ones and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of the Jewish people whose graves are unmarked, every human being, every member of every nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. Tonight, in addition to all of the victims of COVID that we remember, we recall too these members of our community who succumbed to this disease, to Manny Frisch, Jack Kaufman, and Mike Beltzman's families, we send our deepest condolences. The art sites that we observe tonight are for Paula Bass, Rose Berger, Shelley Blum, Max Gideon, Larry Hirsch, Jack Kadish, Florence Lasky, Morris Plafkin, Aaron Robfogel, David Remnick, Jack Rose, and Harry Shaberman. So much loss. Yehi zichram livracha. May the memories of all of them bless us. May these memories provide us with a measure of comfort as we now face the world in their absence. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you again for joining us on this difficult anniversary. We look forward to seeing you throughout the week on our various programs, and next week on our Shabbat, and soon for a happy Passover, hopefully the last one that will be separated, those of us who still are, from our friends and family. Good night. We conclude with, may we know peace.